Good morning, everybody. It's Marty the JavaScript Party. My buddy Rhett, and I have her favorite kind of nut, as far as I know. It's a what is that? An almond. An almond. And she loves them because they have very soft shells. Today is Thanksgiving Day. That is a day in the United States that when I grew up, and I think to this day, most of the people that I know considers this is the day to be focused on what you are thankful for. So, like New Year's Eve is the day that you need to sort of set aside to think about what you would like to accomplish over the next year. And Christmas is probably set aside to kind of think of like all the things that, uh, kind of the world, the situation, try to be festive, try to put positive energy into the world. But Thanksgiving is the day that we sort of try to exclusively focus on being thankful and try to not think about like things that are bothering you, things that could be better, things like that. Just focus on, hey, what are the things that, we're grateful for. So if you're in the States, I hope that's what you're doing. If you're not in the States, yeah, I guess you got to do what you got to do. You got to survive. We must survive. Um, survive. Anyways, so we have gotten to the point where I finished a feature, and the new feature is, let's just make sure it still works. We add a visualization. We go into the update view. Let's go ahead and close that, and we resize, and this guy resizes along with it. So it took 6 sessions. So each session is anywhere between about a minimum of maybe 15 minutes and an absolute maximum of 2 hours. So we had 6 of those. And to accomplish this task, there was a lot of refactoring that had to be done, a lot of things that were already sort of using width and height, and we needed to sort of, since now 2 things we're going to be consuming those things, we needed to kind of put put um, infrastructure in place to sort of accommodate that because you really don't want, if you're going to be sharing information amongst a lot of different things, it many times works out to centralize that so that in case that information needs to be mutated in some way to all the other receivers, it can be, there's a centralized place to do that. So like a really good example is like, let's say we wanted to shift everything down by 100 pixels, and so whenever we're trying to determine what the available height is and the available width and stuff is, um, if we need to sort of update everything throughout the system to accommodate this new requirement, we really want that to be centralized. So anyways, we did take, I believe it was like if we do a git log, we can look in here and we can see that video 317, we did our code commit. A video 310, we finished up our massive refactor, started this. So it's probably 7 videos. Now, the next step is unit testing. So one of the things I really wanted to do is write unit tests or have 100% unit test coverage on this application. That was the original goal. Now I've gotten to the point is like during the unit test is sort of some time that I've sort of specified that I want to focus on making sure that I understand what each individual line of code does. So I've broken the unit down to the unit. I know I have worked in a few places that were did unit tests correctly. Like there's probably 100 ways to do unit tests, and probably 99 of them are do more damage than good. But I have worked in some places that did really great job with unit testing them. And the way you can kind of tell that happen is like, let's say you have a function like this and you don't really know exactly what to do. If your first thought is, oh, you know what, I'm going to go look at the unit test for this and see what the name of that unit test is and anything in there, that is the place where you'll that's how you kind of know, I think, you're on the right track. And this is something that just dawned on me this morning. I did not understand that before this morning, but I have seen it done right in some places. In all those places where they did it right, by the time I got there, we were doing it wrong. And what I did was wrong. And I just didn't know any better. But anyway, so one of my rules that I like to do is when I start sort of one of these new things, I go to the package.json and then I close all other tabs. I don't know if you do this for very long, you will find yourself in a situation where you have hundreds of tabs open and the tabs are more trouble than they're worth. And so we have our test script, and it will we can run npm run test, and that will run this command, and it will ensure that it uses, since I'm running it from the package in npm, it will ensure that it uses all the libraries and everything associated with this package. It won't try to use any globally installed things. And when you if your if your global installs sort of get out of sync with what is on your package or for your project, you can end up with some very strange little um, um, strange little idiosyncrasies, strange bugs that are very unique and almost impossible to figure out. So I always try to run things this way. One other thing I wanted to mention is that I, my logic and my understanding and applying my what I understand about the way things work is that it should take us 15, 20 minutes, maybe a half hour to write all the unit tests for this. My personal experience is, though, that it often typically takes more time to write the unit tests than it does to write the code itself. Um, so one of the nice side effects of this new scheme that I've come up with is we can actually figure that out. So what really does happen? So npm run. Oh my gosh. Okay, I hit one of these buttons. There we go. F11. F11 did that. npm run. So while I was trying to actually um, hit the backspace, I accidentally hit F11, and then F11 ended up um, making this application take over the whole screen. So npm run test. All right. So this takes a bit. This takes a minute. So this is one thing I don't really factor in when I think, okay, how long is it going to take to run this thing? Is, just the fact that getting the unit tests up and running many, many times, just getting them running takes a while. So, and that would be and I never think about that, but there's actually going to be broken unit tests that don't compile because especially this is when it's really a good chance of that happening because I created new services and things like that. So anytime you create a new service, and I didn't think about this, but anytime you create a new service, you will likely break some unit tests because the unit tests full on their own will bring in services or mock services or whatever. Um, so that is something that I never really thought about, but that is true. And it is 10:35 in the morning. It's 42 degrees Fahrenheit outside. It was, so I think 32 is 0 Celsius. And so that's 10 degrees Fahrenheit higher than 0 Celsius. And I believe there's about 2.5. So it's about 4 degrees Celsius. Yeah, so this would not compile. So this is telling me that in this spec on line 120, that there's a function called resize visualization, and that this uh, is declared here. So it's telling me that, hey, this is broken and this is what it's trying to call and not working. So let's look at what it's trying to call first. So I'm going to hold the control button down and hit the shift. So we are looking at this guy right here, and it takes an app layout component. Let's see. So this is when it would be nice to just have these on different lines. So let's go ahead and do that. Um, It's so hard when things get broken from you just make a change like this and then someone says, I think this might have broken it, and then you tell them, look, all I did that doesn't change the code at all, and that just sort of exposes how little they know, and then everybody is upset. You don't want that. You want to try to be as careful as you can in that situation where somebody is seeing a change like this that didn't change anything. Um, but it looks like we want an app layout component and we want an HTML div, and this is an app layout component. So in our service or in our component in our unit test, it does have an access to that, but it doesn't necessarily have an HTML div. And then that HTML div is called editor view div, and it needs to have an offset width and an offset height. So that's probably the problem, but I don't know. It also needs to be able to call this finalize initialization function. Um, so we've gotten a little bit of knowledge. I'm going to hit that save, so we will make this change as part of unit testing. So all we're doing is kind of changing the layout. This is pretty safe, and I do prefer this anyways. I don't because A, it's easier to see in this sort of vertical format, but also B, um, it leads to a lot fewer uh, Git commit issues. Now, if you could put another comma here, boy, would that help with Git commit issues. Because, and maybe you can, but I don't know that you'd get away with it socially. Um, but that, because a lot of times I end up with Git conflicts just because like someone may have changed something on this line and then I put a comma there and then it's like, you both changed this line and literally all I did was put a comma there. Um, so, so I'm hitting save, and then that is where the problem. This is apparently there was. My guess is there was some sort of change to this that then broke this. It says, oh, okay, and it looks like all it was a naming thing because it's saying that I called resize. Oh, I remember that. So this was a spelling issue. Um, so control. So it's weird when you hit control and this here hyperlink, it shows it launches this. But what you really want is hit control of this up here, and then so it looks like maybe all we need to do is rename that. So that probably took 10 minutes, right? And then so now we're going to sit here in confusion because for some reason the unit tests don't re redraw. So so you got to kill it, and then we got to wait all that time for it to come up again, which is just a huge waste of time. Um, so I don't know. All you can do is kind of sit. It kind of like reminds me of like, see, my brain had to go like 1,000 miles an hour, right? It was like if I was quietly heads down working on that, my brain would have been moving 1,000 miles an hour, and now there's nothing. And one of the hardest things is this is when it's easy to get distracted and decide you're going to go do something else, and then next thing you know, it's been like 45 minutes, and this has been sitting here waiting for you for 44 minutes, but you couldn't stay focused. You couldn't stay like focused on this because there's like literally a whole minute of nothing to think about. Um, I remember this had to be like in 1996 or 1997 talking to this girl, and she was one of the most brilliant developers I've ever met. She was just right out of college, and she was telling me it takes it over an hour to compile. And I was like, I just don't think it does. And she's like, yeah, we're doing this crazy thing that would take Ada. It's a language that the military really likes, and and let you call things from Visual C++, which basically gave you hooks into Windows applications. So you could write code in Ada and it would do that. And she was like, it takes over an hour for it to compile. So we were like, okay, let's put a stopwatch on and let's watch it and hit go. And it took 45 seconds. She's just like, oh my God, I thought it took over an hour. I honestly like this time while you're waiting for stuff to build and stuff like that is very difficult to sort of get a grip on unless you actually watch the clock, which can make the whole experience a lot better. But in the meantime, you just sort of have to sit here staring at it, and it is a bit of a torture. It reminds me of that movie, The Matrix, when they're fighting in this room. They're like da, 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 and they're fighting, 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 and then they stop and then they rest. All right, so it does look like it was able to compile now. So that's the first step. So a lot of times that's my first whenever I have to work on stuff. That is a whole session, development session in of itself. And then one actually failed, and this is It expected 712, but it got 0. And this is a in this file, app update layout component spec ts, and it's on line 86. So that information is right there. So what we could do is we can hit Control P and then paste that in there, and it'll actually find it for us. So that's one way to do it. The other way, a really good way to do it, is to um, actually find it. Like imagine where it is um, in the architecture, and then go, oh, okay, this is a layout, and it's my app update layouts, and it's the app update layout specification, and then come over here, go to layouts, and then you go like, oh, it's our app update layout, and that's this guy. So you could open this, and then you can go there um, to this specification file, and that kind of conditions your brain to be a little bit to see the application a little differently, more from a architectural perspective as opposed to like a sea of stuff that you search in, and that can be pretty good for you as an individual. And line 86 is where the problem is. So right here, and it wanted the viewer height to be 0, but it was actually 712. And do we care? Should process. So I sort of used to have this sort of mindset where like all I wanted to do was just get 100% and I didn't have any other goal beyond that. And now I'm trying to understand things. So we expect the component, which is a mock component, to have a viewer height of 0. I don't know why. Doesn't seem like I actually was trying to test anything at all. And now it's a viewer height of 712. So I don't think it's worth sort of digging around in that to get this to pass. It looks like all I was trying to do is get coverage. So I'm gonna hit save. And look how good our coverage is though. Like we're at over 99% on everything. So let's see if change that to 712, fixed it. Fixed it is sort of a funny term. Yeah. So we don't know what that did. Literally all I did was get it there. Okay, so now, and I think that that second part of just getting all the broken unit tests to pass often takes a whole session. But this time we've gotten it to compile and to pass all in one session. So that is a pat on the back. Good job, Morty. And you do have to give yourself positive reinforcement. If you do not give yourself positive reinforcement, over time you will be your own worst enemy. You will bring yourself down. You do not want to do that. All right, so now we can drag this guy over here and we can say, I would like to sort by statements. And I guess the first thing to do is see how many. So it looks like we have 2 tests that aren't at 100%. Um, and one of them is branches. One is the viz component. So we did make the viz component smarter. So it makes a lot of sense. When I see the branches over there, my first instinct is, oh crap, we want to do functions over branches. So maybe hopefully that'll be a good way. I thought I'd try to pay attention to that when we built it out initially, but maybe we missed, maybe we should have done that. And then, so we have 6 lines that are uncovered and 3 branches. In our UI services, we have 1 line that is uncovered. So, and no branches. So that is interesting. That's a very, very interesting one. Honestly, I can't imagine what is doing that. So let's go do that just to fix the curiosity. Okay, so in our viewport resize service, we have 1 function that's uncovered. Wait, so what? Did we have functions that were uncovered? Oh my gosh. So I went back and did not remember the sort. Viz UI service. It's showing one statement, but nothing about function. Or, oh, I didn't scroll over to functions. Oh, okay, yeah. There is one uncovered function. So we have a full function that never gets called. So now that makes sense. Apparently there's a function that has one line on it that never gets called. So let's go ahead and go in there. So this on resize, which is private, never gets called. I mean, never gets executed. And is so I guess you normally would make something like this private because you don't want something outside getting a hold of this and executing this function. But I mean, that's insane, right? Like there are times where you have to protect things because there's a motivation. Like it might make somebody's life easier to be able to call it. I cannot see how executing the on resize. Uh, it's kind of like everybody probably has possessions, right? And if you have a possession like a brick, right? You guys have a brick at your house. You're probably not going to put a camera on it. You're probably not going to provide a bunch of resources to protect it. But if you have a computer, you're probably not going to leave that laying outside so that anybody could grab it, right? It's just like this resize event to me does not seem like something that I care to protect. All right, so this is an app services UI viewport services. So I want to think at it in terms of that. Normally, what I would do is I would just copy this file name and search for it up top. But I'm trying to sort of condition my mind to think in a different way. So right now we know this is in our app, which makes sense, and we know it's in services. So let's go ahead and go to our services. Let's close other things down. Let's just close everything down in there. Okay, so now we're going to go to our services, and then it's in UI. So we have a UI service. It'll be easier to remember too, like um, what all these are because we're kind of looking at it this way, UI. And then once we go in there, we got our viewport resize service. Okay, so at this point, I do not believe it is worth, well, I don't think it's worth protecting this, but maybe worth spending the time to figure out um, how to test something like this. And I just don't know with these private things what the right way to do it. So I'm going to go to ChatGPT. Now this is probably well, this is um, probably like this is probably like I would never ever even try to figure this out if it wasn't so easy to figure this out. So it's like kind of like the level of effort it would have been to figure out how to test a private class in a unit test in Jasmine is like if it was a 3, I probably wouldn't do it, but this is probably like a 1. So it's worth doing, but it wouldn't have been worth doing like 2 years ago. I would just be like, okay, don't make it private. Done. Now it's easy to unit test. Um, okay, so I have this code. And learning how to use ChatGPT is have this function function in and my biggest fear of using ChatGPT is that like right now what I'm doing is $10,000 worth of resources. Like I'm using massive amount of resources that some external thing is absorbing for me. And then in the future, if I ever need this, I'm gonna have to pony up money that it isn't worth it to me or to anybody. Like $10,000 just to figure this question out just isn't worth it. Um, that's my biggest fear is that I'm using something at a like it's kind of like I don't know, like when I was a little kid, they used to always talk about how drug dealers would always give you the first drug for free. Like this is what I wonder. Like I'm wondering, am I getting are they trying to addict me to something that then when the real cost gets exposed to me, I never would have got involved with to begin with. But then if I have a dependency on that, I'll do that. So that's my biggest fear. Um, I have this function in Angular, and I um, don't know how to test in an Angular service, and I don't know how to test private functions. Unit, and it's unit test. With Jasmine Karma. And I guess what's happening is like a year ago when we first started this project, right, at New Year's, about around this time last year, um, um, I wouldn't have gone to this level of effort for unit testing. So, like, I guess just to be fair, like, yes, it ends up taking a long time to write unit tests, but like, what you demand out of yourself is a higher and higher bar. You want to get over a higher and higher bar, and that's, I think, something that's left out when you sort of do your analysis. You're like, oh, all this stuff I used to do a year ago will only take me an hour. Yeah, but you're doing a bunch of new stuff now through a public aid that calls them. Yeah, I don't want to do that. Access using bracket is allowed unit tests. Okay, so extract the logic. It's an internal helper and test that. Maybe this is what I want. Wait. So they make the internal helper private as well. Okay, that's stupid. Um, I'm very curious why, like, so why would you include the? I'm just curious about this because I, I'm sort of, it kind of, this thing up here kind of pisses me off, right? It's like, who the hell are you to tell me what not to do? Um, and when they are stuck, okay, but okay, you seem like a bit of a jerk by adding that. Especially those words seem those words co- come off as judgy, and it seems it seems like you are channeling, channeling a a real a-hole. That helps. You're right. The very what not to do can come off as condescending is a good way, and like you make so you weren't going to make, or instead of sounding scolding. Yes, I feel like I'm being scolded. Like But to avoid accident, we can do the service API. Here are a couple approaches to keep that. That would give your options with why you did something wrong. Yeah, on top of that, I can decide myself if it matters whether I make that function public. Like 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 to me, seems like there is a low chance that this private function would ever be misused, and if it was, it would not be very impactful or difficult to debug. You're not wrong. For this specific make it probably has no practical downside. Yeah, that's what I was thinking. I like honestly the only reason I didn't just make it public to begin with was because it was like, well, I'd like to learn how to make it public. I mean, how to unit test something like this because there may be functions in the future that I really, really don't want to expose. But this one, so what? So someone called it. Um, like it has no the upside. It's just the upstates. I love that. Encapsulation matters when it matters. See, this is like something that came from a wise person. This is something that came from a moron, in my opinion. Like I read this and I think, oh, this is a moron. This is someone who doesn't actually understand what they're doing. This is someone who just like is in autopilot. They're like an autopilot zombie individual, um, not a real developer. So they're looking for like, oh, I want rules that I always have to abide by and never have to and I can never vary from. But it's like that's crazy. That should never exist. If you're a computer programmer and you fall into this trap, you're screwed in the long run. You're never ever going to be able to survive. Um, and I guess this is another reason why why it takes so long. No payoff, anger, art, sacred. See, I feel like whoever wrote that, what not to do, that you parroted it. And I'm assuming that, it saw some of that is is that would not last long as an actual computer programmer. Remember, it's someone that abides by rigid rules and is 100% destined to be wrong sometime and probably 100% unable to change course. Change course. You actually touched on a real divide in the software rule followers versus problem. There are people who cling to rigid best practice checklists in ways that are nervous. Like I used to work with this dude, and he was a nice guy, and he actually taught me a really good lesson because we got like it started. So in Atlanta, when it snows, we do not have the infrastructure for snow. So it's very important to get home as soon as possible because the second the roads freeze, we have tons of like downhill grades that don't have anything to stop you from going off the edge and stuff like that. It's just very hilly here. There's lots of things. So you have to get out before it snows. And it started to snow and then it stopped. And they sent out a thing saying, hey, everybody, you can go home. Go ahead and go home. And everybody on my team went home. But then it stopped before we were leaving. So I decided to stay because I wanted to get some stuff done. And the guy came up to me. He said, "Hey, man, when you're on a team, you really need to do what your team does because you make them look like jerks. If you want to get some stuff done, go home and do the stuff and all that." And he was a junior developer. He had actually just been a fry cook before that. Like he cooked, and then he went to some kind of boot camp and he learned stuff. And then he had been a developer for like less than 6 months, and I had been a developer for like 25 years at that point. And he was telling me, but he was just like furious at this Angular code that this guy had written, and this guy had written it, and he's like, and then he went to the website, the Angular website, and the code that the guy had written was not in best practices. It was specifically called out in best practices, and I was like, when was that written? And one of the cool things about the Angular website is it is in Git, so you could see. So we figured out when that best practice was written, it was after the dude had written the code. So it was not a best practice when the guy wrote it. Um, so it was just like he had this idea that there was like these best practices that have always been there, and it's like, no, we're making this shit up as we go, and then it just goes away as fast as it comes. So yeah, so yeah. So anyways, I've gotten completely off track. So I guess we understand one reason why these unit tests take a lot longer. All right. Okay. So I think the bracket, Beth. So I think the bracket method um, works best for me. Best for me. That's so funny but I don't really like the spy on. And actually, I probably don't even need it. Viewport, this viewport. So, so I, I don't really like the spy on approach. I don't know why. Don't know why. It seems like it doesn't. It doesn't do anything useful. Could feel weird, especially okay, yeah, so I'm very curious what it's going to, especially if you're used to thinking in real values instead of call history. It doesn't actually run the function or verify the side effects directly, it just records the call. And um, so for me, I guess to further the conversation, oh, okay, the only time is the method has a side effect or you don't want to execute. Yeah, see, I could see that like, okay, in this situation, I don't want this called. Uh, yeah, like because we're spying on. Let me think through this. Set. Spy on set. So yeah, we just want to make sure that viewport, this viewport set. Oh, the signal. Yeah, we're just saying, yeah. Yes, yeah. See, for this case, comma, in most cases, is change the signal name. Don't see any value in checking that the signal that the specific signal was called. See, I'm trying to kind of think through, like, okay, why do I see things a certain way? Like, my instincts are telling me this is doing a spy on in this specific situation, and in most cases, is more trouble. If yeah, yeah, it only tells you that. In addition, it feels like this would be straining, and likely, and make me less likely to do important refactors down the road. That's a big deal. Or tightly coupled to specific. Yeah, yes. That is the problem. Is we are tightly coupling this unit test to the name of a freaking property that we're that we're um, that we're that we're calling. Like a function, a specific function, a property name. Like why? Why would we tightly couple that in the unit test? Yeah, like I only care about what comes out. I don't care about what names I decide to make it so that it'd be easier for me to maintain in the future. So my unit test work is mostly for me to explore the benefits and drawbacks to unit testing. Additionally, I'm misspelling this. I think it's two L's. Initially, let me understand things like why things not to do, why phrases like things not to do piss me off. Um, so, um, all I am really trying to achieve, is 1% code coverage, 2, a deep understanding of what what every line does. And I am considering adding 3 specific comment / definition of what every function does. It makes total sense. You're approaching your test as more of a learning comprehension than a strict product safety net, which changes the entire context. Here's how your goals 100%. Your private functions do get executed either directly or via bracket notation indirectly. This ensures you literally see every line run and knows how it behaves. It also lets you confirm the edge cases, side effects, and error handling. You're not chasing coverage for metrics' sake, you're chasing coverage to explore every behavior. Deep understanding of it. Calling private method directly is perfect for this. Avoid spy on checking real state ensures seeing the actual consequences, not just the function it's called. You can experiment freely, change inputs, outputs, tweak logic and system. Comments define every function. Writing code comments for each function is highly complementary to your testing approach. It turns a test into a learning diary. Yes, that is true. And I've seen this. I have actually seen this and been so impressed and found it to be so useful. Each test becomes a mini documentation of behavior and intent. This makes your understanding explicit rather than just intuitively in your head. Extra because your tests are for explanation and extending your naturally avoid annoying things not to do dogma. You get to decide which internal details matter to observe, decide. In short, your method is much more like learning physics by running experiments than writing code to satisfy coverage badges on or someone else's checklist. If you want, I can help. All right, so we got this up here. He did show us. So we know that that is the goal of the test, is to update the viewport size correctly. So it does take this sort of third thing that I'm considering. And honestly, when I first started, I only wanted 100% coverage. And I used to actually avoid certain things that took time to achieve 100% coverage. Now I'm like, okay, on top of that, I want to understand what every line code does. So I've literally increased the requirements that I've placed on unit testing. And so even if I have gotten better and time and I can do things faster, it doesn't matter because I raised the bar. And then three, now I'm saying, okay, now I want this to actually document things. That's yet another raise of the bar. And that is exactly what I've found to be the reality in most environments is the bar just keeps raising and raising and raising. The pull request people keep asking, demanding more and more out of the unit tests. Um, okay, so the name of this, so it's weird that service does not exist on viewport service. So it won't actually let me. I am actually getting does not exist on viewport service. Oh, am I in the wrong? I'm maybe in the wrong one. So it's app. Okay, where are we again? We are in viewport resize service. W. So that's W is for Windows. I think viewport should be one word. Oh well. Let's try this one. Now it's upset about that. Okay. So it's saying that this doesn't exist. .get. Okay, what's it doing here? Okay, so this should just execute it. So what is state? State is equal to service viewport get. Or however you read it. Okay. Okay. So I'm just going to comment out both of these. I'm wondering, like, if we were to go back and look at all my old videos, if we would okay, so now we have our 100%. So now on resize, so I think I want to change this to return. So this is a function, right? It's a function called on resize, and I made it an arrow function, and it doesn't return anything. It doesn't accept anything. It doesn't return anything. Um, and I'm just going to say, I think I can just say, here's the beginning of the function. So this is so different than anything I do. On resize, true. I don't know if this breaks stuff or not, but we'll try. I can't think of why that would break anything, but this is just a little different than the way I normally do things. So it didn't break anything. Let's see, we should have coverage on the return true, and then we can just say const executed. I guess executed is a really good name. And then we expect, let's just go ahead and get rid of this. I mean, like I definitely did get into my feelings on that. Like, man, like what the hell? Who do you think you are? But at the same time, it's just kind of like, why does that annoy me so much? And I think it is like okay, so I play fantasy football. I do that well. I do really good. And everybody I play against, I'm by far the oldest person. It's my son and his friends. That's who I play with, and my wife. And many times they think that like a football player that's a rookie this year is more likely to be around than a guy who's been in the league for 10 years. And that's insanity, right? Like they have this youth bias. Um, and it doesn't really annoy me, because it helps me win because they'll take a guy that is brand new that has never done a thing before they'll take someone that has been playing for 10 years and somehow managed to stay in the league for 10 years and they think that he's more likely to be around next year. Um, I think this is like when I see that kind of thing in a software developer, like where they're like, no, you should always do this. Oh, make sure you do that. Oh, always do this. I go, oh, this guy is pushing an agenda that will end in failure for this person and everybody who buys in to them. They have like a mental virus that is guaranteeing them, and then before they go down, they're going to try to bring down everybody they can with them. I think that's what I'm seeing. Expect to be to be true. Is that a function? Yeah, that's a function. All right. All right, so everything seems to be good. Everybody's happy. I think if I go, yeah, we're at 100% in here. If we go back here, now we're at 99.89, 90. Man, I thought we were at 99 on everything, but I guess not. All right, so we only have one problematic function, and this is thing, and it's got branches. This is our component, and it's got branches that aren't. There's two. It has its own service that's covered, but inside of component, we have some issues. And basically, this guy, which that should be easy, right? So we just want to call update old with um, a true with a number and a file of that, and make sure that we got our what we called, right? I mean, we could check this as all. at all. But there's no question. I fully understand what this line is doing. It's checking to see if that is true. And if it is, then it's going to set this, and then that's going to set this, and then it's going to return it. That's it. There's nothing hard about that. So um, we want to do is go into here. Now this time I'm just going to do it my old-fashioned way, just so I don't lose track. Control P, boom, boom. Right? And basically we want to go into it's this guy is the problem, the first problem. Update old, and we just want to call that. And that's easy. And we know that it's named component because that's what it was defined. And basically, um, so it should, so, so I'm not going to make it where the test aligns with the comment. You know what? Why not? Why not? Okay, it should um, update the component attributes, and then comma, and then, so I think the first thing is called the specification, the first argument, and the second is I don't know. This whole thing is called specification. Oh, the first one is the expectation. This is what I expect, and then this is what I want you to do and to prove that I expected, which is a function. So the name of it is component, right? So basically, we want to say um, const. What is the name of this thing? Um, where are you? Where are you? Where? Okay, updated is equal to true. And then const width is equal to 100. 1000 is fine too. Const height is equal to 1000. And then component is the name of the component. That's what they chose to name it. I don't know. Oh, okay. Okay, so we actually had to create this component this way. The viz component. So weird. Every other time we've. Okay, so this is different. Okay, so apparently we have to get this fixture debug. So this is it is a viz component. Okay, yeah. I guess this is something that is built out in the Angular test system to return an actual component. Okay, component, and then component dot set old, update old. And the very first thing in it is our updated. And then the other one is width. The other one is height. And then we're going to run this, and all we're looking for is coverage at this point. And then we'll run, we'll check the old width and the old height, that they're equal to the width and height. I don't, it is a bit more work than what I was kind of planning. Okay, why did it? Okay, so yeah, that has been one of my annoyances is it doesn't really run it unless you. Sometimes it reruns, and sometimes it doesn't. But if you hit refresh on this page, it will run it. I think we should have a warning that we have something without an expectation. No. I don't see it. And we have 100%. 100. We perfect. Perfect. Okay. Oh, actually, we don't have 100%. We did get this covered though. Okay, so now we expect component dot updated old width to equal width. So we are actually testing this thing. We were not actually testing things before. Now we're actually testing things. Um, so the demands that I am demanding of myself for a unit test X have increased dramatically, and we have to keep that in mind. And we're actually moving through this a lot faster. If I hadn't gone on that big old, like, I don't know, you could call it explore into past traumas or a pity party or whatever. If I hadn't done all of that, then it probably would have, we would be done probably now. So it looks like it's all good. We're passing everything. Um, let's just make it fail just so we can be sure. Unless you actually make it fail, you aren't really sure. Because, like, yeah, see, it's not running my tests. It just did this and didn't actually run any tests. Some people are so good at unit testing this that they can actually make this a very enjoyable, like, visual experience. See, it rebuilt, but and this time it reran. See, I just don't understand. I think that is probably those sorts of inconsistencies are probably the reason that Angular. Oh, we got this one too. That's gonna be a pain. All right, so where are we at now? We are at 91.1. We got 4 statements. We got 2 branches. So I think we covered 1 branch and 4 lines uncovered. So next one is this one. Okay, so when this update dimensions signal handler gets called, apparently I don't have a render view child, which is kind of a bummer, which is this native element. No, what is it? So it's this guy right here. When this gets called, this is how it's supposed to get called. Um, but it's not getting called. Um, and it's the component's render view child. So I don't even know if that exists. So let's go ahead and do that. So when I say that, as we're going to call it just like this, we're going to get our component and then we're going to call it just the way this is, but we're going to hard code all the numbers in there. And then we're going to see um, what happens because I have no idea what's going to happen. This one is going to be a lot trickier to run. Um, and I don't see how breaking this down anymore will help at all. But basically, we just want it to do a render view child or to go into this, and it seems like we'll be there. We probably will not achieve actual testing like the way this was. So maybe see this. I think this is typically what the test does, not what the function does. And maybe it would be better and more useful if it's what the function does, not what the test does. Now, theoretically, they should be the same thing, and maybe with time they will be the same thing as I get better and better at this. I'm definitely so much better at this than I started, but should should so it should handle the uh, signal effect, and update the dimensions. That's what it should do. That's what this function does. And so what we're going to do is, first things first, we got to get our component. And then we have new width, new height, old height. New width, new height, new height, old width, old height. And then, so we have our component. I don't think, is our component the element ref? This render view child. Render view child. All right. So this is a perfect example. Like, I want to be able to understand everything. And obviously this is not easy to understand. Whatever this is doing is not easy to understand. What the hell is render view child? Oh, here it is. It's this thing. Okay. So there's an element and it could be undefined and I don't even know what it is. So now let's just run the function and see what happens. Component dot update dimensions handler, and then component, and then viz width. We're going to call that new width. Because it is actually passing a primitive. It's always useful to, when you think about something, so this is passing an object of the component. Wait, this is supposed to send the render view child, not the actual component. Okay, so render view child is equal to component dot render view child. All right, that is, we aren't trying to pass the component and we're trying to pass the render view child. And again, I don't know what happens behind the scenes with this. It would probably be worthwhile to just say check to see if it's truthy or not, but it might just work, and I don't really care. If it works, I think it's great. If it doesn't work, well then, that's kind of a bummer. But it is supposed to be width, right? The third one and the fourth one. And then I'm just going to pass in a 1 for the signal ID, and I'm just going to call it signal ID 1. I don't even know if that's a good idea or not. Let's our input ID, render, let's add the st render input ID. So this code is clearly much more difficult to understand than like the previous code. I have no clue what's going to happen here. So it says it's rebuilding, and I don't think it actually, well, yeah, I don't think it actually ran the tests. And I do think that that is one of the most frustrating things about unit testing is like sometimes you'll spend like early on, I used to spend like a whole hour on something like that. And I would be like thinking that my tests were passing the whole time because I hit save and it ran. It didn't. Okay, so now we are the masters of the universe. Go 100%, 100 everywhere. 100. That's perfect. Okay, so now um, should handle. Okay, so what do we care? What do we want to know after this thing runs? Um, render view child. Um, so it should have called update dimensions with a new width, update dimensions. So let's look at update dimensions. Is there anything that see? I don't want to test update dimensions in here though. So all we're looking for is, oh, it to return updated. So const. And then we want to expect updated to be true. And I guess what we want to do is actually make it, I'm expecting it to be false. So, whoa, how did we lose our 100? We had 100. What happened? What did I change? We had 100, right? Until I actually asked for the freaking, what the, how did we lose 100%? Like that makes no sense at all. And now we have 100%. Don't understand. That makes no sense. Like it makes no sense that we had 100% and now it dropped. And like this is like so clear compared to like if you're working on code where most of the code you haven't written and all that. That sucks. Okay, so update dimensions is not getting 100% called. That is just bizarre. And I don't even think this was the problem, right? Like, so when we weren't calling update dimensions, I don't think this one was a problem. Oh, well, I did see that. I don't know. Guys, I think this is the reason that this is really honestly the reason I think that it's just not feasible in a professional environment to have like 100% unit test coding because, trying to run down little things like this when you don't like suddenly things aren't 100 like it did say 100% everywhere. We had full, maybe not. Yeah, there. We had 100% test coverage at this point. How did we lose that? That makes no sense. Then all of a sudden, like we don't have 100% test coverage anymore. Um, so, anyways, we got to call update dimensions and pass in. The problem is that yeah, we want to pass in an actual HTML element. Now, one of the things I thought could get us 100% is yeah, I don't know. All right. So basically, it should update. an element with a height and a width. And the problem, oh, okay, oh, we might be able to get that. Oh, oh, maybe, yeah, I don't know. That doesn't make any sense, but we might get there because I think it didn't open it. It didn't run this because they were the same. And maybe at one point I executed it without it being the same. And it doesn't look like it reran it. Let's change this to false. Yeah, it didn't run it. Reload. We're so close, guys. We're so close. This seems like it's been a long video, though. Okay, true. And then let's run this. And I guess we want to run it with them the same. Not updated. And basically we're going to send in the new width twice. So you can do this because it's a primitive. It's just going to literally send in the number. It's not going to, it's going to create a whole new piece of memory and send that in. Let's see if this gets us there. Oh, it did not. Oh, interesting. How? Oh, okay. So now we're in here and this request animation frame never got called. And this is a good example. Okay, so we expect this to be false. This is a good example where like, oh, um, so we expect that to be false, not updated, which is kind of a weird naming. It's probably not a good idea. Um, but I don't know what else to do. And I don't know if it actually ran, and that doesn't quite look right. All right, guys, so now the last but not least, and I wish I'd have caught this during development time, but this really needs to be another function that we call, that we pass in, and it probably will have to be bound. Um, so because this function never gets called, so um, let's go over here and take care of that. Where we are so close, right? We're 95.5. We got two statements that are uncalled. So this is line 134. What a rookie mistake that is. Okay, so update native element. And this thing's going to take something called native element, which is an HTML element. I think it's an HTML div element. Oh, I don't think, oh, it won't need, oh, we don't have to bind it because it does not need to know the context of this, um, which is a number. It doesn't need to know. I think I always do width and height. I don't know why. Every once in a while I'll switch width, number, comma, height, and number, and then Um, and then basically all we want to do is this. So normally we end up having to do like a bind function on this, but we don't in this case because um, we never need to know, we never need to access the variable this. So since we don't need to access the variable this, um, then it doesn't matter. Um, we don't have to bind it. So basically in JavaScript, whenever a new function is created, the very first variable it will create is this. And if you don't bind it or you don't use an arrow function, then it will overwrite the this that it currently knows with a brand new this that doesn't have any information about the parent or the calling function. So anyways, update native element. So we should be able to just be like this. This dot update native element. So what native is misspelled? That should not be a problem. I mean that wasn't the issue. Eh, what? Okay. Okay, it needs a function. This does not return a function. So this needs to actually return a function. Um, so we want to manufacture a function. We're not trying to execute this function. We're trying to manufacture this function. We're trying to pass request animation frame a function that it will call. And what this does, this is a function. So, um, oh, and yeah, and we have to pat. Okay, so we want to. So, okay, what we could do is we can like okay. So what we would be tempted to do is like this: native element, and then width, and new height. But what this actually will do is it'll return a void. It won't return a function. We actually want this to return a function that updates this. So, so what we want, so I can never remember. Um, so I'm going to see if I can put this into the right words. So being a function, I'm trying to send a function to the request animation frame. And this is the function want to send. And see if it'll. So it's saying, well, I don't. Okay, bind. Oh my God, I've never done that before. So the bind will actually create a function for me. Holy shit, how did I go this long? Oh, but then I have to option two. Oh, but see, it's still going to try to run this, and it's not going to do that. No, that's not what I want. The problem is I want it to execute, bind the offshoot bind the method. Okay, so it's saying do this dot bind this comma less common for single shot calls, and then wrap with this. So this might be what I end up doing. See, so let's just try that and see if it works. First of all, let's see if it handles this issue of I won't get 100% coverage, but I will get everything. Oh, that's wild. What the hell just happened? This isn't even the code, right? Have I lost my mind? I feel like it gets so confusing. Update native elements. Okay, what the heck? So this apparently works. So let's just control Z out. I swear. This confusion. This is the easiest situation, right? Like, so it's saying that this got called 27 times. So now I'm changing this code back to here. And I'm thinking it's calling it because we did the change, but for some strange reason, we seem to be like lagging. We are like one behind. And we actually had it fixed before. Look, see, that's one behind. Because we just got rid of all that code and rebuilt. That sucks. So we need to restart. I need to go here in a second because Thanksgiving lunch or uh, dinner, halfway between lunch and dinner, is we have to leave for that here soon. And I definitely want to shave and change clothes. So before we go, I want to look nice. I want to look like a nice grandpa. Um, see, these are the bizarre. That okay? You guys all saw it. I definitely caught it on video. For some reason, we are lagging. We're one behind, and now it's not even passing anymore. And it's upset on one of these. But let's see if did we end up with 100%? No, we don't even have 100%. And I do think this is the thing. This is the thing that ends up making this take so much longer. So it's upset because it says that app layout component should process the visualization. It's expecting 796 to equal 712. Oh shoot, and that might actually be the size that I changed this to. What if I change if I make this wider, will I get a different? Oh, it's still 796 and 712. So I don't even know what's happening. Here, let's look for the number 796. Let's look for the number 712. Oh, so we didn't change the height. Let's change this. 875, yeah, so it's based on the height of the viewport. Okay, let's change that to be greater than 1. So annoying. That isn't, I would call that on my fault, not the system's fault, but I thought I got, did I not get rid of the function? Okay, I'm just gonna look for update. I'm in a bit of a panic mode right now because I want to get out of here. Okay, so the function is still there. I'm not calling it, but it's still there. So I don't think we need it anymore because for some reason it was not giving me full credit. It was laggy. It was one step behind, I think. I don't know. It may not have been though, because that method is still there. Okay, and we're at 100%. So I don't know if we're going to be at 100% tomorrow. So I'm going to leave it at this. Run the unit test again tomorrow. See if we're still at 100%. And if we are, we'll move on to end-to-end testing. We'll do a commit and we'll move on to end-to-end testing. Oh, I do need to do actually make sure this stuff actually works though. Yeah, still working. Okay, we did not break it, even though we did make some code changes. Um, but I hope everybody has a wonderful Thanksgiving. I'll see you all tomorrow. And happy coding, happy coding. Bye.